It's the end of Blackpool Pleasure Beach as we know it, because they have rebranded to Pleasure Beach Resort officially from the 19th of February 2024 onwards. So hello, I'm Scott, this is your experience guide, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the latest Blackpool Pleasure Beach to Pleasure Beach Resort rebrand. There was no official statements or press releases sent out about the rebrand, and the first that people saw about this was actually on Facebook when the profile picture was changed to the new Pleasure Beach Resort logo, and the branding on the page was changed from Blackpool Pleasure Beach to Pleasure Beach Resort. Also, the info in the bio, such as a new tagline, times that you can get in touch with Pleasure Beach, and some other bits of information including rankings on TripAdvisor, were all changed on the page. Now, this isn't a big surprise that they've changed to Pleasure Beach Resort, as it was actually something that people were starting to spot around 4 or 5 weeks ago, when on new sponsored adverts, Pleasure Beach were no longer calling themselves Blackpool Pleasure Beach. They were saying Pleasure Beach Resort opens from the 2nd of March. The Pleasure Beach Resort logo was on there. There was also a new tagline, "It's more than you think." So the rebrand to Pleasure Beach Resort is not a surprise. However, the wider reaction to it has really not been that great. There's been suggestions that the logo looks like something that IKEA would do, something that Ryanair would do, something that Megabus would do, something that Macro would do, something that other brands would do. There's a lot of brands that use the same colours as the new Pleasure Beach Resort logo. So there was no official announcement about this. It was just a, here we are, we've changed stuff on Facebook, we've changed stuff on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it, we've changed stuff on Instagram, and so on. Just the branding changed on all of the pages, but at no point did Pleasure Beach put out an announcement that we are rebranding because of this reason, that reason, whatever. But then on the following day, on the 20th of February, it was noted that there was an article with Lancs Live who had asked Pleasure Beach to comment on the rebrand, and Pleasure Beach gave them an official statement, or so it seems from the article. A spokesperson for Blackpool Pleasure Beach said, "Pleasure Beach Resort has recently announced our new name, which incorporates our full offering. The park will always be the centrepiece of the resort, but we also have 2 large hotels, the Pleasure Beach Arena, the Globe Theatre, the White Tower Restaurant, Ripley's Believe It or Not, Adventure Golf, WG Beans Coffee, and an exciting array of shows and events in our venues throughout the year, including hot ice." In 2023, we undertook a large-scale research project to fully understand what is important to our current visitors, as well as those who have not visited us in a while. Our change reflects these findings. We are very proud of our history, heritage and location, but we cannot continue to rely on those alone to drive attendance. We're one of the top 10 parks in the world and the top 5 in Europe. The change to Pleasure Beach Resort is aligned with the wider attractions industry and just the start of a more modern era for us. And that's the end of the statement from Blackpool Pleasure Beach, or Pleasure Beach Resort, according to Lancs Live, which is in an article which I will link in the description of this video. So I think there's a couple of key points that are well worth talking about from that statement that Pleasure Beach have put out. And the first one is incorporating the 2 hotels, which is of course the Boulevard Hotel and the Big Blue Hotel, both award-winning hotels, incorporating those with the amusement park. That is such a great idea, because that will hopefully now mean some positive action in terms of making a dedicated entrance for hotel guests to freely move in and out of the park and go back to their hotel room, go back into the park whenever they see fit, because currently the hotels are not incorporated with the park other than for a very small window of time at the start of the day and a very small window of time at the end of the day. Most resort hotels at theme parks have access to the theme park and the amusement park or theme park all day. Examples here, Cedar Point. I've stayed at Hotel Breakers once before, and you can literally exit the park by Magnum XL200, you cross a road, you can go into your hotel, there you are, you're in your hotel. So you can go to the on-site restaurants, the on-site entertainment, go back to your room for a nap or chill out, anything you want to do. You can leave the park and go back to your room or back from your room to the park as many times as you want. It's not like you have to do it at the start of the day or the end of the day only. You can do that all day. But there's many other examples: Phantasialand, Portaventura, Disneyland. There's all these different parks that incorporate their hotels to their amusement park or theme park. Currently, Blackpool Pleasure Beach don't do that. And now that they're a resort, or officially calling themselves a resort, that is absolutely vital for hotel guests, that they are able to access Blackpool Pleasure Beach, the amusement park, all day from their hotels. Something else I want to talk about from the statement in the Lancs Live article that Blackpool Pleasure Beach have given to them is this one. Blackpool Pleasure Beach state that they are proud of their history, heritage and location, but they cannot continue to rely on these alone to drive attendance. It could be argued that Pleasure Beach haven't done that for some time. The big thing here is that they have changed their admission policies quite a few times in the last 10-15 years. We go back to 2008 when Pleasure Beach announced that they would no longer be a free-to-enter park. They brought in the rider pass. I think the initial thing was they were just going to go to a pay-one-price park then. Of course, the reaction was extremely negative. So they gave people the option of the non-rider pass alongside the wristbands. That was in place until COVID in 2020, and it worked really well. People who didn't want to do the rides still had the option of going in the park for a little bit cheaper. People who were at Blackpool on a hen or stag do, they just wanted to go on the big one. They had the option to buy the big one ticket where they could pay like £10, enter the park, ride the big one once, and then wander around the park for as long as they wanted. Pay per ride was still an option, so if they decided actually we want to have another go on the big one or go on the Grand National or Big Dipper, they had that option. But of course in 2020, which is perfectly understandable, Pleasure Beach went to a pay one price. But ever since 2022, when all restrictions were dropped, I think it's been the wrong decision to be a pay one price park. I think it would work so much better as it was before COVID. Bring back the walk round pass. I'm not saying go back to free entry. I don't think that would work in this day and age. I don't think pay per ride and free entry is the answer for Blackpool Pleasure Beach. I don't believe the park has the infrastructure to be a park like it was in the 90s where people turn up, walk around for free, pay to do all the rides. I don't think they have the infrastructure for that anymore, but they certainly have it for the walk round or entry pass to come back alongside the e-ticket to get on the rides. The ride scanners are still there. It could be managed and it would get people, especially families, in my opinion, back into Blackpool Pleasure Beach. So for me, I think despite Pleasure Beach saying that they no longer want to rely on their history, heritage and location to drive attendance, I honestly don't think they've done enough of that anyway, because I believe that while Blackpool's busy, Pleasure Beach should also be busy. But I saw so many occasions last year where that wasn't the case, where I'd be in Blackpool Pleasure Beach, the park was like a ghost town. And I'm not talking like start of the season here, I'm talking main summer season. You leave the park, there's nowhere for people to park, the streets are rammed, Blackpool is rammed, but Pleasure Beach was dead. There's got to be a reason for that, and it's not because they're in Blackpool. It's because of the entry policy. So I honestly don't think Pleasure Beach have relied maybe enough on their history, heritage and location to drive attendance. And maybe doing that more would actually encourage more people who are holidaying in Blackpool to visit the park rather than just trying to encourage online bookings. In my opinion, another case of not relying on their location, history and heritage enough is by not having flexible opening times, by being insistent on closing at 5 or 6 o'clock on nice sunny days and just being set to, we're only going to open late on late night riding events. Again, I don't think that works with their location, and I feel like if the entry pass was there, if the park was open later, people would go in more and they would be able to rely on being Blackpool or in Blackpool to drive their attendances, especially at peak times in the summer. Something that I always found when I was a kid going to Blackpool is that living not far away from Blackpool is if the weather was good and it was a weekend, my parents were often like, let's go to Blackpool. It was never a, we'll plan it out 6 weeks ahead. It was a, the weather's nice, we're all doing nothing, let's go to Blackpool. I would imagine families still do that, but when they get to Blackpool and there's no walk round pass and it's 50 quid on the gate and they're shutting at 5 o'clock, why would people go in? Why would they want to pay all that money for just a couple of hours. So that's where I feel like Pleasure Beach have maybe not relied on their history, heritage and location as much as they perhaps could have done in the last couple of years. Taking Pleasure Beach off the branding of the park is never going to change the fact that Blackpool Pleasure Beach or Pleasure Beach Resort is in Blackpool. Now, it's okay, take it off the merchandise, take it out your name, but people will still have to go to Blackpool Pleasure Beach. And I really don't understand why that is such a bad thing. Blackpool's reputation, it is what it is. It was the same when the big one was built. It was the same when Ice Blast was built. It was the same when Valhalla opened. It was the same in the 80s. Blackpool's reputation is not going to change. But Blackpool's reputation as a seaside town where you can go on cheap rides, get cheap ice cream, cheap drinks, cheap this, cheap that. That is why people go to Blackpool, and it's something that should be used, not avoided when advertising the park, in my opinion. I just really don't understand taking Blackpool out of the name. For me, I don't get it, and I don't think no amount of posts on Twitter, X, official statements, anything will change my mind on this. I really, really don't see the benefit of taking Blackpool out of the resort's name. Blackpool Pleasure Beach Resort, okay, it might not roll off the tongue as easy as Pleasure Beach Resort, but Blackpool Pleasure Beach is not the only pleasure beach in the UK. Okay, you can argue that Skegness and Great Yarmouth are not on the scale of Blackpool Pleasure Beach. But if you're located in Skegness, Norfolk, or any of those surrounding areas, and you search for Pleasure Beach, you're more than likely going to get Great Yarmouth or Skegness coming up before Blackpool. And that is why I'm just like, is it really going to work? Is it going to work beyond the north? We'll just have to wait and see. This is not the first time that we've seen Pleasure Beach Resort branding. I believe it was in 2009 we saw this, and it didn't take long for it to be switched back to Blackpool Pleasure Beach, so we'll just have to see how long it lasts this time. As a lifelong fan of Blackpool Pleasure Beach, I always hope for the best. I always hope that Blackpool Pleasure Beach have a successful season, are able to invest in the park, build new rides, maybe put more shows on, extend their opening hours. I always hope for the best at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. But at the same time, being a fan of the park doesn't mean you can't be critical of what they're doing. And I don't believe Blackpool Pleasure Beach are getting everything right at the minute. I've spoken about a lot of this stuff in videos or online a lot, and I often get accused of being negative. That's fair enough, because I'm not being blindly positive here. But at the same time, I've been writing and doing videos about Blackpool Pleasure Beach online now for the best part of 20 years. And I've seen the highs, I've seen the lows, and I really don't like where things are heading right now. But that's not to say I'm not going to wish them all the best for the 2024 season. I hope it's a great season. I hope all of us that have commented and negatively about the Pleasure Beach Resort thing are wrong. But that remains to be seen whether it is the right choice going forward. But like I say, we're all entitled to our opinion. We're all paying customers, and everyone should be allowed to have an opinion about Blackpool Pleasure Beach or Pleasure Beach Resort without being made to feel like, or maybe I shouldn't visit the park because I said this, or things like that. So I just think that everyone is entitled to their opinion, especially paying guests, and we'll just have to see where it goes. But yeah, I'm going to leave it at that for now. Please let me know in the comments section below. Do you like the new branding? Will Pleasure Beach Resort work, or should they have stuck to Blackpool Pleasure Beach? Many thanks for watching. Please hit the like button. It's a little thumbs up below, and I'll see you next time.